So I got fan relay 2 wired up the same way I did relay 1, except that I used the light green wire, which is connect to fan number 2 relay ground trigger. So that's the only difference there. Now the rest of these, the orange wire connects to a ground triggered air conditioner relay. So I'm going to use that for the trinary switch. Yellow, which is labeled input number 2, is optional, connect to a programmer ground input. I believe I read that that can be used to trigger nitrous. I'm never going to put nitrous on, so I'm going to cut that wire and just tape it up to the rest of them so that it can't short out. The gray wire is connect to the ground side trigger of an air conditioner shutdown relay. So I don't even know enough about what's in the vintage air relay system to know if it has a shutdown relay. I didn't read anything telling me that it does, so I'm going to just cut that one short as well, because from what I read, that can shut the air conditioner off at wide open throttle. Again, you know, if I'm in a drag race or something, I don't want the air conditioner on at wide open throttle, I'll just shut the air conditioner off. So the white is points output. That one I need because that connects to the red and white wire in the other sheath coming out of the CD ignition. So I'll need that one. The dark brown is the tach output, which I need to connect to both the transmission and the tach gauge inside the car. And the tan wire is a digital gauge output. I don't have digital gauges, so it's used to drive Holley EFI analog gauges via a 554-130 gauge module. I don't have any of that. So the yellow wire, the gray wire, and the tan wire, I'm just going to cut off and tape them up to the rest of the wires so they can't short out. So the orange wire in that harness and the 2 triggers for the fan relays, the light blue and the light green, all have to run toward the front of the car. So I'm just going to tape, and those all appear to be able to be bundled together with these 3 wires I cut off. So I'm just going to tape all that up real quick. And the brown wire for the tach and the points input wire need to run towards the rear of the car, so I'll leave them separate and I'll run those in the same sheath that I run the ignition on powered wire for the fan relays. So I cut these wires that I'm not using at different lengths so that they won't touch each other. Take them in place now so that they can't possibly move or touch anything else, and then they'll be inside a sheath as well. So I have one fairly neat, fairly untangled set of wires going to the front of the car and 2 going to the rear of the car. I need to get something to cut that tape with. I'll shut off the camera and be back whenever I'm ready to address the next part of the job. Okay, I've got the heat shrink connector on the ground wire that's going between the grounding block on the firewall and the grounding block on the inside of the fender well. Hopefully it's cooled down enough that I can handle it. From the heat shrink, we'll put that on there. And now we've got a good ground all the way back to the battery with all new wire, all new connectors. Should not have any grounding problems, which on a Corvette, because of the fiberglass body, that can be an issue. It's not easy to find grounds everywhere, so that's why I'm putting all these in. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these wires that go in that direction toward that grounding block, and there's 3 big ones, 310 gauge, and then there's 2 smaller wires for the trigger, the gray ones, that go in that direction. So I'm going to put a bigger, see how big I need. Maybe I'll go with the 3/4 inch sheath on that, just so that it has some airspace in it, so that when those are running they don't build up heat. So I'll get that ready to put on there, and I'll be back. I don't know if you're going to be able to see anything here, but right there you can see the loom I'm trying to put on. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some black tape around the end of it so that the wires can't come out of the slit. At least not at the end. That's the easiest place for them to slip out. A smaller roll of tape to work in those confined quarters. So couple wraps of black tape. Now keep that from coming out there. Push that down as far as it can go, as far as it needs to go, I should say. Then we'll figure out about where I want to cut it. I didn't bring my tool to cut it with. Okay, slip those wires in the slit. Probably could have cut that a little bit longer, but it's gonna do. Then what I'll do is I'll get a smaller piece of sheathing and I'll do these wires. Just to make it look a little neater. Hopefully that was in the frame. Well, I'll find out whether it was when I review the video. So there I've got the sheath started on the wires. The left-hand side there, I've got some black tape on it to keep it from pulling out, and I may need some more in the middle of this one because I've got a couple of connectors right there that are going to be inside there. So they may want to ball jack. I may have to tape those in. But I'm going to back the camera off a little bit and show you how I slide it on and take the other end. And I'm going to do something here that's a little different. I'm going to start these wires down this sheath and have them come out a little bit in the middle of it, sort of, so that I can put tape on either side of it to keep that from moving in either direction, so it'll stay put once I get it in, if I can get it in. They're in, and I'll just take a piece of tape. So these wires have to go to the front, or I'm sorry, to the rear of the car. So this will keep them from doing what they want without coming out of the sheath. And then I can take and cut the sheath off. And I'll take that end up as well. These two wires that I started out here are going to be joined in with another sheath. And it will basically have the trigger, the power wires for the triggers on the relays for the cooling fans. Okay, that's in. Now, one of the things I think I'm going to do, I've been leaving this up top because it's easier to work on, but I think I'm going to unplug it and put it down there and plug it back in down out of the way a little more. But my next job, I need to run several wires in a sheath between these relays. I've got the ground wire for the grounding block that's going to need to go in that sheath. I want to put these two wires, or at least part of them, in that sheath. When I say part of them, I'm talking mostly about the white one, because that white one is part of this thing. It's supposed to connect to this white wire, which connects to this connector, which leaves me way too much wire. So I'm going to actually cut this off, and I'll save this connector. Maybe I'll need a 2-wire connector somewhere that I want to put on, but I'm taking this sheath off because I'm going to put these wires into my own sheaths. So first thing I think I'm going to do is figure out how long this red wire needs to be. And I'll cut it off. Somewhere in the neighborhood where it needs to be. Making sure that I don't cut it too short. I'll leave a little excess. I can always cut more off. So that red wire needs to get powered from the ignition source, key on power, which, as I've said before, I'm going to use this pink wire that was the input to the HEI distributor. And where'd my red wire go? There we are. So this has to come over to this neighborhood in order to connect with that pink wire I just showed you. There it is. So that will give me plenty right there. And what I'll do next is I'll take the white wire, which has to connect to the white wire from that other connector, and I'll cut it off so that I can have a connection somewhere over in this area over here inside a sheath. So that is this wire. try to make this kind of in the middle so that it's easy for me to work on. I'll cut this one here, and then I'll measure this one to make it the length I want. I'm slowly getting rid of some of the excess wire. So it's cleaning up the engine compartment a little bit. There's still way too much that's in sheaths that I don't want to rewire the entire thing. But so this is part of this cable that goes, it's the tack I put. Yep, that's the one that goes to the transmission. So I'm going to shut the video off for a little bit and do some figuring about where I want to cut it, how I want to join it. Come back with what I decided on. Okay, I've got that bundle ready to go into a sheath. I'm not sure I can get a camera angle that you'll be able to see anything. So I'm just going to try to pull it up, and I'm going to tape it together a little bit before I try to get it in the sheath so that it's easier to work with one bundle of wires rather than a whole mess of wires wanting to go their own way. And over near the CD box, there's going to be actually one wire from the CD box going in, going towards the front of the car, and then the other wire that used to be in one cable actually is going to go in the direction of across the front of the firewall. So I may make that two pieces of sheathing, or I may not. I don't know yet. But we're going to go over here. This red wire goes across to the firewall. This white wire that used to be in the same sheath as that comes toward the front of the car. So probably could have made that white wire just a little bit shorter, but I'm going to live with it. I'll just make the wires go in and out of the sheath at a different location, that's all. So I'll get this sheath started around here. If I do have a little bit bigger loom here, maybe I'll try that one, since that one was fighting me. I'll get some tape around this so it doesn't slip out of there. And then I'll work on feeding the rest of the wire into it. But since that's likely to take a while, and I've shown you what I'm doing, I'm going to shut off the camera and do it off camera. So I've taken the camera around to the passenger side of the car to show you a little bit about what I got accomplished. The two relays for the fans are wired. Got the wires in a sheath. They go over to, well, they go to the hot wires for the fan. There's also a wire that's going to be the trigger from the air conditioner. I got the grounding block wired and connected, and that wire is in a sheath. I got this 10-pin connector all wired up to the ground trigger wires from the fan relays. And this is one thing where I really don't understand, because they go into this connector here, and then the connector snaps into this one, which is the 10-pin connector that had all the individual wires. It would have been a lot easier to just eliminate that connector altogether and just allow me to have wires coming out of this and just wire them up to where they belong. But so down in here, this is the sheath I just put on, and it covers the ground cable. It covers the white wire from the 2-wire red and white connector, comes down here and connects to the white wire in this connector, which I will plug in as soon as I have another hand free. But that goes here. I ran the white wire this way, I ran the red wire that way along with the ground wire. It's also got the tack signal wire coming out of the sniper that needs to go to the transmission, and the tachometer in the dash. And there's the 2 orange leads that are the power to turn on the relays for the fans. This is the red wire that I talked about that was a 2-wire connector. And there's the brown wire for the tack, so those need to be connected. But in putting all that stuff into this sheath, I was struggling putting it in, and then I had a brainstorm. All I had to do was disconnect this ground wire here and pull all the wires out, put them in the sheath, and then run the whole sheath up under and reconnect that. It made it a lot easier. So here's an example of excess wire. This wire looks to be 6 feet long. I need it to go from my thumb to just beyond my finger to this connector right here. I can span about 8.5 inches with my hand like this, so I need it to be 10 to 12 inches long, and it's 6 feet. That is one, since it only has 2 wires, I think I'm going to take this sheath off and just put those solder melt connectors inside there and make that short to clean up some of this. Some of it is not going to be able to be cleaned up because they've got these long leads on the stuff coming out of the sniper, and where it's got to plug into is right here. You know, so I needed, well, that one's not too bad. That's only about a foot, and I needed about 6 inches. So that one's not all that bad. But there's another one here. Forget what it's to. Might be the oxygen sensor, but it's, you know, it's 3 feet too long, and I don't know where to put the wires. Maybe if it's to the oxygen sensor, maybe I'll run it down and run it back the chassis and back forward to shorten it. But there's a lot of stuff here that, you know, it's just ridiculous. And it's hard to sort out because it gets all tangled. But these pink wires for, one's the sniper, one's the distributor. They can get shortened. They'll get connected with this red wire and plug into this pink one over here that's the clean ignition on source. So there's still some work to do, but it's looking a little better. You know, as you can see, I've got stuff looped around here. It's just, you know, a better way for them to have done this would be to give you a short connector here and then give you the option to buy extenders if you wanted to mount it further away rather than give you all that excess. But I'm not running that company, so maybe they should take some advice from me. I'll be a consultant. But that's going to be it for today. I will hook up this connector to the 10-pin once I put the camera down because I can't do it with one hand. But I made some progress. About 3.5 hours of work, but made some progress. It's looking a little better. Okay, there's my 10-pin connector connected to the sniper wire. That's not too bad now. I'll zip tie that to something when I've got it all arranged and finished. But that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching.